You just left a conversation feeling completely out of place, and you cannot fully explain why. That feeling is not in your head. It is not insecurity, and it is not oversensitivity. Psychology has a precise name for what you experience, and understanding it reframes not just today but every moment you have ever felt this way. But before we get there is one specific thing that happens to deep thinkers in ordinary situations that nobody has ever accurately described to them. Stay with me, because this is not about being different for the sake of being different. This is about something structural, something built into the way your mind processes the world that creates a specific and predictable kind of friction in environments that were never designed for it. And once you understand what that structure actually is, the word weird stops feeling like a verdict and starts feeling like the most inaccurate label anyone ever put on something they simply did not have the framework to understand. You have felt out of place for as long as you can remember. Not dramatically, not in a way that was ever obvious enough to explain to anyone. Just that quiet, persistent sense that you are always translating yourself, always calibrating, always giving people a version of you that fits the container available rather than the one that actually exists. And somewhere in the middle of doing that translation so many times, you started to wonder whether the original version was the problem. It was not. And here is where everything you were ever told about yourself starts to fall apart. The world you have been navigating was built on a specific set of assumptions about how minds work. Those assumptions privilege speed, quick processing, confident answers delivered without excessive deliberation. The ability to move through a situation, extract what is immediately useful, and continue forward without looking back. These assumptions shaped every institution you have ever moved through. School rewarded the fast answer. Workplaces reward decisive action. Social environments reward easy fluency and light engagement. None of those systems were designed with your cognitive style in mind. Not because your cognitive style is inferior, because it operates on a completely different axis. Where the standard model moves fast across the surface of things, your mind moves slowly into the depth of them. Where the standard model extracts what is immediately useful and continues forward, your mind stays with something until it understands what is actually true. Where the standard model produces confident output quickly, your mind produces more complete output slowly. That difference is not a deficit. It is a design difference. And the friction you have felt your entire life, the sense of being slightly wrong for every room, slightly too much for most conversations, slightly out of step with the pace everyone else maintains, is not evidence that something is wrong with you. It is the entirely predictable experience of a mind built for depth moving through systems that were optimized for speed. Here is the strange part that most people who have felt this way their entire lives have never been told. The qualities that made you feel out of place in those systems are the same qualities those systems most desperately needed and least knew how to recognize. The depth that made you too slow for the classroom is the same depth that allows genuine understanding rather than surface comprehension. The complexity that made you too much for most conversations is the same complexity that holds nuance that simpler processing discards entirely. The tendency to keep going when everyone else has already decided is the same tendency that finds what the early conclusion missed. You were not the problem. You were the thing the room did not know how to use. Most people completely miss this distinction because it requires separating two things that fused together in your experience very early. The experience of not fitting, and the conclusion that not fitting meant something was wrong with you. Those two things happened together so consistently and for so long that they started to feel like the same thing. But they are not. Not fitting is a description of a mismatch between you and an environment. Something being wrong with you is a judgment about your fundamental value. The first one is accurate. The second one never was. And this leads directly to what psychology actually says about why you have felt this way, and why the word weird is the least accurate description anyone ever applied to you. Weird is what any system calls the thing it cannot process efficiently. Not because the thing is actually strange, because it exceeds the capacity of the available framework. A deep thinker appears weird to a system built for surface thinking for the same reason a complex equation looks wrong to someone who only learned basic arithmetic. The problem is not the equation. The framework is simply not large enough to contain it. Every time someone looked at you like you were too much, too serious, too deep, too slow to just go along with the obvious conclusion, They were not seeing something wrong with you. They were encountering the edge of their own framework. And because frameworks feel like reality to the people inside them, the edge felt like your problem rather than theirs. But here is where it gets really interesting, because this is not just about reframing past experiences. It has a direct and practical consequence for how you have been living right up until this moment. When you internalize the belief that you are weird, that your natural way of thinking and engaging with the world is somehow aberrant, you start managing it. It is the moment your depth of processing makes contact with the surface level at which the situation is being held by everyone around you. You are feeling the full weight of something, its implications, its emotional texture, its connection to other things, while everyone else is responding to the surface and moving on. And in that gap between your experience and theirs, the mismatch becomes almost disorienting. You feel it most clearly in those moments, most visibly, and most painfully. That moment is not evidence of your strangeness. It is evidence of your depth. And depth, in a world that moves fast across surfaces, will always feel like it belongs somewhere other than where it currently is. The honest truth worth sitting with before we finish. You will not stop feeling that gap in every room. The world does not slow down. Most environments do not expand to accommodate depth they were never designed for. What changes, what is genuinely worth changing, is the story you carry about what that gap means. It does not mean you are too much. It does not mean you are wrong for the world. It means you are carrying more than the current room requires. And that surplus, the depth that exceeds what most situations need, the processing that goes further than the moment demands, the thinking that keeps going when everyone else has already stopped, is not a burden you failed to manage correctly. It is everything you have to offer to the situations and the people that are finally large enough to receive it. Tell me in the comments, what is the moment you felt most clearly that your mind worked differently from the people around you? When did that gap become impossible to ignore?